Hi, everyone. Hope y'all are doing okay today and had a good Halloween weekend. Anyone have questions before we get started today? All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and in the chat, I'm going to drop the link to our Flipgrid for today because we're going to get straight to sort of a peer review today. And so far from this class, these are the ones that are posted. So I'm going to drop their names in the chat as well. Okay. And there are people here, you may not have posted your Flipgrid yet, or you may be having issues with it or whatever, but you're still going to participate today. Okay, and I'll show you what we're going to participate in just a minute and whose you're going to give feedback on. Okay, let's share my screen. Okay. Before we get started with giving some feedback, just to remind you guys, we do take 102 together in fast track, so you will have 102 with me next semester. What happens sometimes is other people from other fast track sections try to move around a little bit. So you want to register for 102 sooner rather than later. Our cohort should register, your 11 o'clock class should register for 102 section 5. And if you didn't already know this, we will be going traditional next semester. So I will be on campus in Lamar Hall. We'll have class on Mondays and Wednesdays at 11. And then Fridays, we're going to do electronic. We'll probably do, instead of Zoom, we'll just do class blog videos, sort of like we do now. So that's the modality for spring. I have had a few students who have asked if they could switch to a different time because they have like a scheduling conflict at 11 o'clock next semester. That would be okay. I just want to make that like, let that be at a minimum because I don't want to push out someone who's in my 10 o'clock cohort because someone wants to switch times. I'd like to keep those cohorts together. So just keep that in mind. And yeah, Miss Black, we don't know if she's going to be with us next semester, but we're like crossing all the fingers. She will be. So we can just all stay together. Do y'all have any questions about registering or any of those issues? If you
is the 11 o'clock class going to be like reserved for us, or is it going to be like first come first serve?
It's going to be reserved for y'all. Yes. Well, I mean, it should be, but that's the problem. Sometimes, like, okay, to be honest, my fear is that I think I'm the only fast track teacher who's going face to face in the spring. Most of the others will be remote or online. And so my fear is that some of the other fast trackers will try to flood my sections. Now, generally, Carson, if this happens, any of y'all, if you cannot sign up for 102 because it's full, you immediately send me a message. I will tell Miss Jackie and she'll kick out one of the ones that's not in our cohort. It's just supposed to be for our cohort. But sometimes students, it's like they're shy. They don't want to tell me, or they just feel like, oh, well, I missed my time window or whatever. No, you are guaranteed a spot in my class in the spring. So if you can't get in, just let me know and we'll kick somebody else out.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Yeah, I'm pretty sure a lot of students, they want to be in class next semester, so they might try to switch instructors. Okay. All right, so we are going to give feedback on each other's Flipgrids today, and I've already been watching some of them. They're great. Most of them are around, 4 to 7 minutes, so they're not super long. I'm going to assign you someone's video to watch today and give feedback. Okay. So last week we took a lot of time to just be in the research realm, reading about topics that interest us. I got to conference with lots of y'all last week, which was really nice. Hopefully Flipgrid didn't give you too much of a problem. I only had one student who messaged saying, oh, I had to record it so many times because I don't know if it was glitching on her or what, but anyway, hopefully it was pretty straightforward. What you're going to do today is you're going to go in and watch. I'm going to assign you a video to watch. You're going to watch that peer's video and then just respond to them. There's at the bottom, there's a place for you to type comments. I want you to respond based on these questions, which I'll keep up on the screen so you can kind of come back and forth. But essentially, I just want you to pretend like you were in the room with this person having a conversation. They're telling you what they're writing about, and you are just thinking about it from an argumentative standpoint. You're like, okay, well, this sounds interesting, but have you considered this too, right? So you're going to push them to think about any holes that you're noticing in their research so far. You're going to talk to them a bit about their sources. Do you feel like they're credible sources? Do you feel like the sources are varied? So if like all their sources came from NPR, that's kind of a problem, right? So you got to vary those sources. Say, well, maybe you should consider researching different types of sources. Does the researcher communicate that they have a good understanding of how they're going to use the sources in the paper? Some students, if they haven't done an in-depth reading of that source, you'll be able to tell because they'll have the source up and they'll just give you a little brief note about, I thought this source was really interesting and I plan to use it, but they don't tell us anything specific from the source that they're gonna use. So if you're noticing a lot of that, you might say, you might need to read these sources more clearly and kind of take notes on what you want to use from those sources. The student should have a working claim by the end of the paper. So you want to think about the claim so far. Is it arguable especially? So could you argue against it? Because this is an argument paper, or will be. I watched a few of them last night as they were coming in, and I did notice a number of students did not do the working claim part. So if they didn't, you might suggest, okay, where do you think maybe ask them a question, what do you think your claim's going to be for this? Where are you actually going with the paper? At the end, they should have talked to you about the research they still need to do. So what you could do is suggest things like, you might consider these search terms, or maybe you even read an article yesterday on something that relates to their paper and you could like hyperlink that article, right? So you could share resources with them. And then lastly, you want to consider kairos. Remember, that's the rhetorical term about timeliness and context. Does the researcher's work speak to this moment? So you want to think about that. We want to be writing about issues that are relevant and are like a part of public discourse right now. So if they haven't, you might give them some feedback on how they could, how they might frame it in something that's happening now. All right, what we're going to do is, Liam, I'm going to have you watch Cade's video and give him feedback. Cade, you're going to give feedback to Mally. Mally, you're going to give feedback to Caitlin.
Who?
Oh, sorry. Who? Here, I'll put it in the chat, okay? But Liam is going to watch Cade's video and give him feedback. Cade, you're going to watch Mally, M-A-L-L-I-E. Mally reads video, give her feedback. Mally will watch Caitlin's. So Caitlin Skeen. Caitlin Skeen, you're going to watch Carson Miller's and give her feedback. Or it'll say Carson M. Be careful because I do have two Carsons. The other one's W and she's in my last class. So you're looking at Carson M. Carson, you're going to look at Piper's. And then Piper, you're going to look at Liam's. All right. Now, that's all that I saw for this class that has been posted so far. Now, if you've just gone in and posted yours, I have to actually approve it. So anyone who is here, what you're going to do is those students that I dropped in the chat earlier that have, already posted their video. So it's Liam, Cade, Mally, Caitlin, Carson M, and Piper. You're just going to go to one of those videos and you're going to watch theirs and give them feedback. Okay. And when you guys go in, I'll just show you what it looks like real quick. Let's get out of here. All right. So this is what it should look like from y'all's perspective. You're going to go in and find the one that you're supposed to view. And this is like from my last class. What you'll do is you'll just view it, and then down below you will give them that feedback. Okay. Are there any questions? Sorry if y'all are hearing my chickens. They're out here being wild again. Okay. Well, I'm going to mute. I'm going to set our clock for 15 minutes. Okay. I'm going to mute my screen. So if you guys have a question, you can just unmute if you want to, or you can just drop it in the chat. And then I will make sure and go in and see if there's anybody else who's posted one that I have to approve. Now, guys, if your comments don't show up right away, it's because I have to approve comments too. So don't worry about that. Just, type your comments in and post them, and then I'll go through and approve them.
Miss Buckley, you said I'm watching Cade's, correct?
Yes, Liam is watching Cade, Mally. Mally is watching Caitlin. Caitlin's watching Carson M. Carson M is watching Piper, and Piper is watching Liam's. And then anyone else who's here, you go in and you just choose someone from the list that I just said, someone from your class, and you give them feedback. It'll help you as you're developing your own research. All right, are we good? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and mute, set the timer, and I'll check in. All right, guys, we're at time. I'm seeing that some folks are having some trouble with Flipgrid does, it looks like censor a number of things that you might be trying to type that are sort of central to someone's argument. So you may have to use some different kind of little terms to say what you're trying to say. So this has happened for domestic violence, and I think the word femicide earlier, it might just be that a lot of Flipgrid users are middle and high school, and there may even be a way for me to turn off some of that, but anyway, it's come up a few times. Dylan, I see your comment about the video comment. That was happening to folks earlier, and I ended up changing it. Could you refresh your page and see if you're able to leave a text comment? It should work now, because you may have brought that page up earlier in the day. I had to actually switch that over. All right, guys, before we move on, let's talk about how this peer review went. Anyone want to comment on like maybe looking at someone else's project, what you learned from it, maybe how it provided you some insights into your own project or where you need to go from here? Or do you just have any questions about it?
I can comment on mine. So I had Piper's, and hers was super like relevant to today's time. Hers was talking about how we have a new member in the Supreme Court, and so that way she and that's obviously super relevant because Ruth Bader Ginsburg just died a month ago, and so as 19-year-olds now and some 18-year-olds, we all need to start learning more about our government and what's going on, because it is voting season, and we just need to be more responsible and think about what's actually going on outside of our own little bubble.
Yes, so true. Oh my goodness, the election's tomorrow. For some of you, I guess this is your first time to vote, so that's really exciting. And you may have already voted or done absentee or whatever, but it is super exciting. Yeah, Piper, be sure to look at Sarah Tabor's. She has a similar project to yours, and you might, get some insight from some of her research too. Guys, don't forget, a lot of these projects have titles, so you can look at them, and if there's one that is similar to the research you're doing, you might look at theirs and see which sources they pulled from, and you might get some ideas there too. Any other responses? Okay, well, Miss Black and I in the next couple of days will be adding comments to these too. I don't know if y'all get notifications that you have comments, so you might need to put a message or remind yourself in a few days to go back into these Flipgrid videos and look for your comments. I've tried to make all of the ones that have been posted so far active, but I'm kind of doing two screens at once. I have my computer over here, but if I don't, I'll make sure that they're active before the end of the next class. So by 1 o'clock, all of the comments that have been posted should be active, and you can go in and see those. Okay, we got to keep moving forward. You might have a question before we do. All right, well, let's start with going over the actual argument assignment sheet. So far, we've only really looked at the part 1 assignment, which was the research journey last week. So if y'all will just come along with me, we'll get the assignment sheet. You can get it in Blackboard. See this comment. Okay, good, Carson, I see your chat there. So y'all should get that email saying you have a comment. So that should come through from me or Miss Black within the next few days so that you get some good feedback before we move forward with writing the paper. Okay, so if you're in Blackboard under Unit 3, at the top, you'll see the 2 assignment sheets for this unit. So you can check off part 1. We finished that as of today. Let's go ahead and look now at the argument assignment sheet. So if you think about all the assignments we've done this semester, we've done different assignments for different audiences, right? This paper, the research argument, will be for an academic audience. So it's going to be a more formal paper than maybe the review was last unit. It'll probably be a little closer to our Unit 1 essay, which was that synthesis essay on the common read that happened way back when. Basically, you're writing your argument paper on all this research that you've compiled and put into this Flipgrid video. So this is our drafting week for our actual argument papers. So the assignment sheet up here at the top, y'all know how I love to use epigraphs to kind of start it off. This comes from a book, Brian Stevenson's Just Mercy. This was our common read a few years ago, and it was just a really great book. And in it, Brian Stevenson talks about his grandmother who was born to slaves in Virginia, and she gave him some advice on, how to go about doing the good work that we do in this world. She said, "You can't understand most of the important things from a distance, Brian. You have to get close." So what you did last week in your research journey project was you got close to some issue of interest. This can be really hard for some students. I even in conference last week had a few students who were just like, could you just tell me what to write? And, yeah, I could give you a topic, but the thing is that if you're going to spend hours reading about something, it really should be something you want to get close to, right? So hopefully you have the topic that you're interested in, that you want to read about and spend this time on, and that's what you're already exploring. So what do you do with all this research? So you have this collection of sources, as of right now, and you'll probably do a little more research this week as you're putting finishing touches on your argument. Your task is to research and develop a position on an issue of your choosing. Okay, so the whole point, I've highlighted the word position here, is that from reading all of this stuff, now you have a claim, you have something to say, right? And because this is an argument paper, you want to make sure that the claim you have to say can be argued against. Okay, so these are arguable thesis statements. You want to make sure your issue is timely and relevant to your peers, you and your peers. That's where that kairos comes in. You're researching multiple perspectives on the issue, right? Because otherwise you can't really understand what your position is until you've looked at lots of different sides, okay? You're going to write a paper setting forth your position and offering logical and credible evidence for your claims. So guys, let's take a minute and talk that out. What is not here as far as evidence is concerned? Evidence for this paper needs to be logical and credible. What is not included here? What kind of evidence should you not use for this paper?
Your opinion, your own personal opinion.
Yes, your personal opinion will be a part of the paper because it's in, your argument, but your personal experience. So say like you're writing about something and you have a personal experience with this, right? You're like, well, this happened to me, or this happened to someone in my family. That's certainly, evidence in your own life, and that your personal experience might be a great place to bring your reader in, so to serve as a hook for your introduction to this paper, and even as a conclusion. Like you can start with your personal experience, move into your claim and evidence, and kind of come back to your personal experience, right? But as far as the evidence for your claims, what happened to you, though extremely important, is not necessarily evidence that would be suitable for this paper, because what we call those personal experiences that's anecdotal evidence, right? It hasn't been like researched and tested and that sort of thing. It's what happened to one person. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about the evidence you build for your claims. We want to leave those personal experiences out of the evidence part. Who are you writing to, or to whom are you writing? An academic audience. So think about too that this academic audience may or may not be familiar with what you are researching. So there may be some terms that you have to define if you think that your audience wouldn't be familiar. There may be some context that you might need to build if your audience isn't aware of what you're writing. Okay. Our objectives, like what we're learning here, is how to research. So hopefully you feel more comfortable in the research realm, how to consider multiple viewpoints on an issue and present the viewpoints fairly, how to construct and defend an arguable thesis, how to integrate sources and distinguish between civic discourse and arguing to win. And we talked a little bit about this last Monday, but remember, don't put so much pressure on yourself that you have to win this argument, right? Instead, think of it as this research has been happening for a long time. You are now entering this research realm and giving your argument, and then the conversation will continue without you, right? And so let that help you understand your role in this argumentation is just to sort of, this is where I stand right now. Because I promise you, in 10 years, when you read this paper, you might have changed your ideas, tenfold, right? So it's constantly this evolution of thought. All right, specifications. You want to think about the research that you use. So you want to make sure it's reputable and credible. If you need help with that, remember there's a RetLab module called Evaluating Sources that you can go back to. I think that's the second module we did for this class. I give you some tips on different reputable sources, but at least 2 of the sources need to be peer-reviewed scholarly sources. What that means are things like journal articles, studies, Statista reports, some of the stuff in the database like CQ researcher reports. If you have a question about that, just let me know. One of the great things about the libraries one search option is that you can filter your sources that you pull back by peer-reviewed sources. So you can make sure that they're peer-reviewed. After that, there need to be 5 sources minimum. You may have more than that, but after that, those sources can be popular or journalistic sources. Okay. You're going to type this research paper. You want to make sure you cite from each source used. Sometimes I'll have students list multiple sources on a works cited page, but the only ones they actually integrate into their paper are maybe 2 or 3. If it's listed on a works cited page, it should be referenced in the paper somewhere. Okay. Your citations will follow MLA guidelines. I give you some tips for MLA stuff. I'll also be reviewing that this week in our class videos on the class blog. You can also look at the RetLab module on using sources. So there's lots of resources out there to help you review MLA guidelines. How long does the paper need to be? That's always the big question, right? It'll be double spaced, 5 to 7 pages. That includes your works cited page. So minimum 4 pages with your works cited page, okay? And for this paper, because this isn't a huge kind of broad paper, it should be sort of a narrowed and specific argument. You shouldn't really need to go over 7 pages for this paper. All right, down here it says, main thing I want you to do, formulate your thought, or as you formulate your thoughts, is to make your argument dynamic, address other points of view and refute them. Try to allow as little room for logical fallacy as possible. That means just rely on that good logical evidence from credible sources. If you're too emotional about the topic, it may not be the best one to write about. Choose something you can research objectively. And ultimately, the purpose of the assignment is to present a multifaceted argument that a reader will concede is researched and fair. So your reader may not agree with you on a personal level, but by the end of reading it, they can concede this was a fair argument. Okay. This is one of the higher stakes assignment for the semester, so it's 20%. It's a heavily weighted assignment. But you guys have already delved really deeply into the research part of the assignment. So we've spent all that time. Now you are ready to draft this paper. Okay. The second page gives you some further resources, so things that you can look at, especially for writing argument papers. And then these are the scoring considerations, and we're actually going to use those next week for our peer review. All right, questions about the assignment? Okay. Well, let's look at what your homework is this week. Okay, so you're going to start drafting. If I don't have you go ahead and draft something, then my fear is that you'll put it off until the weekend, okay, which we don't want to do. We want to really work the process here. So before class on Wednesday, you guys are going to submit to the class blog. You'll see the post on it tomorrow, what we call a kernel essay. Okay, so I'm going to click into the notes here. By the way, this link is, the kernel essay link is in your calendar and also under Unit 3 resources. Here it is, Research Argument Planning Guide with Kernel Essay. Okay, so I call it a kernel essay because it's just a really short little essay. You think about a popcorn kernel, right? You start with that and then you're going to expand that out from there. And so the first page of this planning guide are just kind of notes that you're going to take. You will not turn these notes in. These notes are for you to keep, okay? What I want you to turn in for Wednesday is your kernel essay. And this goes into detail about what a kernel essay is, how to write an argumentative claim, and then this gives you a sample kernel essay. So you can kind of see how I've written one out. Just real quick, remember kernel essay is a shortened form of a broader essay. This is a few paragraphs long. You can actually do it all in one paragraph. What it does is it gives the reader some an idea of where you're headed with this paper. It's almost like an outline, but it's in paragraph form. And that way I can read over it on Wednesday real quick, give you some feedback like, hey, this may be an issue, or you may want to consider this before you continue drafting that paper. Okay. That gives you a tip on argumentative claims. And then you'll see how I've color coded it here. This is a model kernel essay. It starts with a claim. It moves into evidence, pretty brief evidence because this is a shorter piece. What a concession refutation looks like for this little argument, and then a final assertion or conclusion. And the idea then is that we would expand this out to be a broader essay later. All right. Any questions about the kernel essay for Wednesday? What y'all will do on Wednesday is go in, you're going to watch my class video, which is on drafting introductions, and then how to give feedback on kernel essays. And then your assignment on Wednesday is to read 3 different peers' kernel essays and give them feedback. Okay. A rough draft of the paper is going to be due on Monday. In our same peer review folder that we've been using, and the link to that is in y'all's calendar. So you'll want to make sure that's posted before we meet for class, because we're going to do like we did today. We're actually going to do peer review during Monday session. Okay. Lots of resources are available to you this week. You just have to seek them out. So you can conference with me, you can conference with Miss Black, you can meet us during office hours. You can live chat with your librarian if you're suffering with the research part. You can reach out and get a writing center appointment if you want a tutor to look over your draft as you're working through this week. So just remember to use those. Earlier is better. Sometimes I get lots of emails on like a Friday and Saturday, and I just don't have time, to be honest, to turn feedback around. So the earlier we can chat, the better. Okay. This week, just follow your calendar. Everything's in the calendar for when stuff is due and what you're supposed to be doing. You'll also see me and Miss Black in the different spaces commenting and giving feedback. Friday, you don't actually have to comment on that video, but Friday's video will be important. I'm just going to be reviewing a lot of MLA stuff. So if you're nervous about that, especially because you are working with more sources than you have for any other project, then you might want to pay close attention there. And you guys have a RETLab module. It's called Beyond the 5-Paragraph Essay. It pushes you to kind of think beyond that 3-point thesis statement and how to build out a strong research paper. That'll be due by the end of the day this Friday. Okay, and then just make sure your rough draft is posted to your class's peer review folder. Let me just review what that looks like. When you go in, make sure y'all are posting to the 11 o'clock class. Okay. All right. Do y'all have any questions for me before we leave? Okay, well, this is drafting week. So, good luck. This can be kind of overwhelming, especially if you haven't done a lot of research paperwork in the past. So reach out if you need help. We'll set up a conference if you just want to meet just face to face with me or Miss Black instead of, popping in during office hours. Some people are scared about that because they don't want to talk to other people about it. All right. Well, I will see you guys next Monday where we will do peer review on these papers.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you. Y'all have a great week.
I have a
Thank
question.
you.
Yeah, go
I have
ahead.
a question just about my grades.
Oh, yeah, Carson.
So for Blackboard, are we gonna get like a grade pop up? Because mine always says that like it's unavailable.
Which grade?
Like the final grade, like the one that's like.
I don't even have it up. So I took down the midterm grade. The only thing you'll have listed are the assignments that you've had so far. And that's probably all you'll see at this point until the end. So I'll put up, because I might try to put, the problem is when I put in a weighted total to try to give you what your grade is at this point, there are so few assignments in there, it's still not a very good glimpse at what your grade's going to be at the end of this, because we still have the major paper and then the final reflection. And anyway, but I might go in and try to put something in to kind of say, this is where you stand so far, because there have been a number of students who've been asking for that. But I hate leaving those total columns up because it just confuses students sometimes. And they, it's also not a great reflection because this is the work is heavy at the end of this semester, but anyway, so there's nothing that you're not seeing. I haven't posted a column for what your grade is at this point. And the only one close to it was your midterm column, and I took that down. So I'll try to put something up before the end of the week.
It's no problem. I just noticed that like there's only like this class and then my math class are the only classes that don't have like a number out of a number, like a final grade kind of like.
Yeah.
So I was just making sure it wasn't on my end or like anything my Blackboard was glitching or anything. So I mean, I'm not worried about my grade just based off of like assignments.
No,
and
you
stuff
are
like
doing
that, but I was just
fine.
wondering.
Yeah, you're doing well. You don't have to worry a bit, but I think it would help students to kind of see, maybe even before going into this paper, if they really need to kick it up a notch with this paper, it would be helpful either way. So,
Okay. Thank you so much.
you're welcome. Have a great week.
You too.
I'm digging those glasses.
Thank you. They're my blue light glasses. I got a bad headache about halfway through and I was like, I can't do this